Welcome to Author Nation. Today we are talking about being a lifelong learner to create work that matters to your audience now and always. I'm Melody Ann and I'm your host, and I'm here to share useful advice and strategies to help you succeed as an author. And if you want to visit authornation.online, you will find a treasure trove of resources for you. So whether you're sipping your morning coffee or winding down after a long day, settle in and let me introduce our guest. Kami Wanous, the Freedom Scholar, has veteran experience as a public educator, homeschool mom, and homeschool mentor. She is the creator of the Raising Leaders Roadmap that guides parents to reset their kids' love of learning and prepares them for future success. Kami is loved for being fun, honest, transparent, and for helping families stop box checking and create a culture that results in lifelong learners and leaders who use their passions to make our world better. Her passion for education, leadership, and freedom inspires youth and adults to find what sparks their soul, and she is here today to spark our soul. Welcome, Kami. Hi, Kami. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to share today. This is going to be so fun.
Brilliant. So my very first question is just share a little bit more about how you became the Freedom Scholar.
Oh, yeah. So this is a really interesting story, and it's one of those it's just supposed to be that way stories because that's just how it is supposed to be in my life. So I was actually a public school, high school teacher, and for 7 years. And then I had my son. I came home and we started homeschooling, and we kind of did okay for kindergarten, preschool, and then I really messed it up. I thought for first grade, I thought for some reason, yeah, we're gonna really learn, man. And so I got a bunch of workbooks, a bunch of everything, got a little desk. I was all excited, and then pretty soon I realized that my son was really hating life. He wasn't excited about what we were doing, and we were anticipating the frustration every day. And then all of a sudden, he was crying every day. And then I'm crying every day. And I had to just think to myself what was going on because this is not the way it was supposed to be. So I stopped everything and I realized very quickly what I was doing is I was doing exactly what I knew didn't work in school. I was box checking. I never did that in school because what person on planet Earth ever met a worksheet they were just super excited about? That's not really what anybody ever says. So that's what I started doing was I started focusing on lifelong learning instead of focusing on box checking and trying to make sure we did all the things, right? And what I found was that being a lifelong learner and focusing on creating lifelong learning actually raises up the level of what is actually learned. It gets more learning, we retain more, we connect more, we are more passionate, and we create leaders. And that's what I'm all about. And that's what I help people do today. So when after the pandemic started and moms started wondering about homeschooling, I said, hey man, I really felt a need to help people. I got experience in both places, and that's where I started. And it's been so amazing because we have to think about ourselves as lifelong learners if we're ever going to make a difference in anybody else's life, including our own and our families.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Okay, so there's nothing terrible about I actually like worksheets, but but it's not that number one way to learn, right? But
Right.
I'm a little bit of a like I love when someone gives me interesting questions to think about and write about. Um, Anyways, okay, so many of our audience they're leaders, they're writing books as leaders, or they want to be leaders. They're writing books to be to show their expertise and build authority in their industry. And so how and sometimes I'm just going to front this question a little bit. Sometimes authors think they have to know everything now. So what does it look like to be a lifelong learner when you're writing a book?
You know what? This is a great question because parents often think the same thing in order to homeschool their families. They think, well, I don't know enough to homeschool my kids. I wasn't that smart. I didn't get good grades. I'm not a teacher. But guess what? We're all teachers. We're all teachers. We all have experiences that can shed light for other people and help them on their journey. And it just takes us reaching in and saying, is this something that I feel is necessary to help people in overcoming their obstacles, overcoming their mindset shifts, or whatever the case? And that is the key to creating great book, is really knowing that you've had experiences that have taught you something. Everybody has a story, and I know, I'm sure, Melody, you teach that all the time, is what's your story, right? And
Yeah.
so what's that transformational story that you can share with everyone else? I teach a lot about public speaking as well, and so that is the key, is what is that lesson that you've learned? Because all those things, and guess what? You don't have to know anything, because we can learn some things together. And in throughout the process of writing, throughout the process of learning, we learn more, we connect more. And I can't imagine a better way to actually learn more than to write about it. There's so much learning that goes into that. And coming out of writing, you're so much a better thinker about that topic, so much better of a communicator. And you're now at a whole different learning level. You know more.
Yeah. Cami, you nailed that. Just nailed it. So, it's like, well, I can't go to university because I don't know enough yet. And I can't get my master's because I don't know enough yet. And I can't do my PhD because I don't know enough yet.
Right.
Right? It's like, well, of course, we all start knowing zero. We all start knowing nothing on a topic when we first turn to it. And as we're learning, and as we're writing about it and teaching about it, it helps solidify our own expertise. In fact, one thing I love to say about books is, it's yes, it's once it's down, it's down. Once it's published, it's published. And yes, that's a complete work. And yet there are other works you can write, and that one work that you did complete, that took you time to think about how to best express yourself. So when you were talking about becoming a better communicator, because when we are coaching one-on-one or consulting or teaching or workshopping one-on-one, people can ask questions, but in a book they can't. And so it really does, as you say, makes you a thinker, right? Makes you a thinker, makes you a better communicator. So I thought that was fabulous. Thank you so much for saying that. Okay, so let's talk about passion and mission and purpose and all these big questions that people have. I know, some people, they go to work, they get a paycheck, they come home, they go build houses, for people who don't have houses, and that's really their passion and their mission in life and their purpose in life, even though their work is something different, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about, mission and purpose, and what these different things mean, and how can we know when we've kind of we're on it.
That is such a great question, and something that everyone struggles with. I know when I work with teenagers, when we're working with kids, and as adults, we're not, if we're brought up in the system of just, doing the work and doing the box checking, doing all the things, we're never talking about that end goal. Like, who are the people we want to become? What do we want to do in the world that makes a difference in the world? And what do we want to contribute? What is all that about? And so I think as an author, we're constantly already thinking about that. It helps, though, to have that passion behind it and to feel like we're doing this for a reason, because it is what we're supposed to do in the world. Quite honestly, I knew I was going to be a teacher. I loved kids. I loved teaching, except I didn't realize what form that would really take in my true passion and my true mission in this world until I started working with families and homeschooling and doing and with the Freedom Scholar and my mission I'm on now. And it's really something, when I look back, I've actually been dabbling with for a long time. And one of those things is that for me, it's the sparking that love of learning, sparking that, if I knew in school, if I could just spark a little interest for reading, at some point, those kids would read something that made a difference to them or someone else, or that mattered, right? Or they would write something, or somehow they would learn something, right? And I knew that was the key there. So, but for me, I didn't know how that was going to manifest itself until much later. But the key is really understanding what what stirs your soul? And I often tell that to students all the time, and even adults too, because guess what? We're setting the example. And as authors, we're setting the example for our readers, right? For our audience, we're setting that example. It uninspired person is not very inspiring.
Yeah.
But
It's
an inspired person, a passionate person, man, that's contagious. And
yeah.
when someone's reading that, you can tell it's so obvious. And that is something that inspires people, makes people put in action something, what you're telling them, what you're teaching them. Otherwise, it's just, well, that was really nice, right? So one of
Yeah.
the things I do all the time with families is, and you want me to go ahead and share this because I really think this helps people.
Sure. Yes, please
Okay.
do.
So one of the things that I share a lot with people about finding your mission is thinking about these statements, and I want you to write these down. So you're going to watch this, and I want you to pause this and just go back, and I want you to think about these statements and which statements really kind of just give you a pain in your gut, a hurt in your heart, something that's like, oh, yes, yes, that's me. Oh, that kills me. For example, my son has always known he wants to help animals, like wild animals, but he didn't know how that was going to happen. And as he's learned more about the world, it's changed a bit and into how he's going to help people live with the animals and the earth and all these things, and then technology and all this stuff. But whenever he hears about some animal being hurt or going extinct or something like that, he actually tears up. And so I want you to think about that. I'm going to go through these statements and I want you to write them down. And it's something that really just gives you an emotional impact. That's something that you're going to focus on and that, might be part of your mission and purpose. So here they go. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, empower the poor, educate the ignorant, promote freedom, heal the sick, comfort the lonely, liberate the captive, preach the truth, produce wealth, heal families, and increase beauty.
Hmm.
Think about those, and as you wrote them down, I want you to circle 5 of them, that 3 to 5 of them that really you feel passionate about. That just kind of like, ooh, yes. And they can overlap sometimes depending on how you think about them. Like Melody and I were just talking about one of them earlier. And so then I want you to go through out of that 5 and just put a star next to the 1 or 2 that really, really feels that you feel something about, that hit your soul in a way. And when you're manifesting that, and you may not know how that's going to turn out, but as you're thinking about your story, your transformation, the message you want to share with people, how does that fit into that? And maybe that's a larger movement. Maybe that's something that you're going to really pursue as a message to the world, a movement that you're on, a mission. And that's contagious.
Hmm. I love that. A couple of things in there that you've said that really, really spoke to me. So first off, find that one thing that really just like you feel it deep inside, like it's in your gut, in your soul, in your heart, whatever, wherever it lives in your body. And then I really like that. Plus the piece you talked about, like, so I knew it was something about teaching. And that's, it's like, something about teaching, but what does that mean? There's so many ways that can go. And I think sometimes people have this deep, it's something about teaching, but it's so vast, it's really hard to pin it down. And that you kind of went through the path and didn't really question, like, I have to figure out where it's going right now, but allowed yourself to move through the journey until you found the treasure. And then when you found the treasure, you started sharing it. Right. And so I really, those two things are really important. Like first, you figure out what that thing is deep inside. And earlier before the show, I was saying for me, it's free the captive, right? Because authors, right, they're often held captive by imposter syndrome and all this stuff. And so a lot of my work is about freeing the captive. but like, that could mean so many things, as you were saying, right? That could be working with animals, that could be, there's so many things. So finding it, and then allowing yourself to go through the journey, exploring the ideas until you find your treasure, the one you can share. So I just wanted to kind of reframe it a little bit, because I just thought it was so beautiful, putting it together the other way. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things too about this is that it may be several of them. So for me, I realized over time, and I've done this exercise about a million times. And as I've evolved in my thinking and really defining it more, I use I heal families through educating the ignorant in order that I can help promote freedom. We can
Yes.
raise leaders to help promote freedom. So
Yeah.
do you see how that's one leads into the other? It doesn't necessarily have to be one thing, but it could, because they kind of overlap sometimes. And so it's however you feel, and your story, that story you feel, that transformation, that tells you a lot about how that manifests.
Yeah, no, I love that, 'cause, yeah, no, that's beautiful. It's not about one thing. It's about, one thing can lead to another, right? Which can lead to another, which is beautiful. Thank you. Let's talk about passion and mission, and how that relates to nonfiction writing. So, sometimes people think, oh, I should write a book, right? Everyone writes a book. But how can authors, tap into, and should they tap into their passion or the mission? How can they tap into it so that they can, enjoy writing the book, feel inspired writing the book, and through that, write inspiring words?
That's such a great question, because there's a difference. There's a lot of range of nonfiction writing, right? So there's nonfiction writing, like a how to sort of thing, in terms of something very manual, like a typing textbook, or something. I mean, we don't really have those anymore, but but those kinds of how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, those kinds of things are very, they don't have necessarily a larger impact, but I think a lot of what we can do with that is we can input that in our message. So even if you are writing a book that's very manual, very methodical, you can still, so what? They learn this, so what? So
Yeah.
they can do what, right? How is this going to help people? And I think that taking the most inspirational thing is taking yourself out of yourself and pointing to your audience and really having that heart. When I walk on stage, I'm not thinking about me. I'm nervous because I want to give value. I want to transform. I want to move people. And when you want to move people, that's inspiring. That comes off the page. That comes into people's hearts. When you're
Yeah.
just looking to say, "Oh, we're going to do step 1, step 2, step 3, and then that will, help you lose weight." No, we want to we want to think about how to move people into a different transformation, and based on your own, of course, and every other people that you've helped. And so that is transformational, I think, is when we look and see what is in it for them. What is in it for them, and how do we move them, move their hearts?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So, if you want to know more about Kami, you can go to www.thefreedomscholar.com, and you have an assessment on there. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, of course, and you guys are welcome to it. So that's it's the love of learning assessment. It's meant for families, but it actually is for everyone, because there is a space here for you as well. And it's really about taking a snapshot of where your level of love of learning is right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's low and you need to increase it, and then you take it about every 3 to 6 months and see how you're doing. If there's, you're feeling uninspired, let me check and see. And you'll see on that assessment, are you reading a book every day, or frequently? Is it like not a Kindle? It's a book. And I know that's there's some people that are Kindle people. I get it. But there's a certain message that gets sent to yourself physically and emotionally there. So thinking about just, and of course if you're an author you're probably a reader, so that's not a good example, but discussing it too. How inspired are you to discuss? It's just a snapshot, and then take it every so often.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And then I want to ask, a lot of times people listen to podcasts and they feel really inspired, or they watch a show, or they go to an event and they feel really inspired. And then they go home and what do I do now? And so I like at the end of our podcast episodes to ask this question. So people are there, okay, how do I become a lifelong learner? What should I do next? What can you give a few ideas on how they can start integrating these ideas into their lives and into their writing?
Absolutely. So the first thing you do is do that exercise we just did. Then I want you to journal a little bit about your different story banks. And you guys probably know about what a story bank is. So just take different transformational stories and how do they match up to those things, that those missions that we talked about. And then if you're still feeling uninspired, take one of those and go do something in that category. So if you're wanting to, liberate the captive, go work at an animal shelter, go work at, so whatever the case, whatever stirs your soul, go do something in that area, and I guarantee you're going to be inspired.
Yeah. Yeah. Sign a petition for Amnesty International. Something super simple you could do in
Right.
that area.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Kami, thank you so much for joining us today. It was like, this has just been a really inspiring conversation. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was super fun.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us today on Author Nation. I hope this conversation has provided you with some insights, some inspiration, and kind of a little bit of what to do next, right? So that you can take your nonfiction writing to the next level and not feel like it is a journey with an anchor on it, but it's a journey with winds at your sails. And I always really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much for your ratings and your reviews. Please keep doing that. If you haven't left a comment or review yet, please go ahead and do that now. And I know you know someone who needs this. I know you know a mom who's homeschooling or thinking about homeschooling, or somebody who has a family and they're looking to rejuvenate that family love of learning. Share this with them. They will benefit from it. There's always someone out there who needs this. And keep writing, keep creating, and keep sharing your unique stories with the world.